Well, Shravan getting us the details that at least 11.5 lakh rupees in cash has been recovered from his house. That's 11.5 lakh rupees. That's the big breaking news update coming in this hour. We've been getting you details of the documents and what has been recovered. Details that Shravan is sharing with us right now that 11.5 lakh rupees has been seized from the residence of Sanjay Raut. The ED has recovered a large amount of cash from Sanjay Raut's residence. That's the breaking news update coming in. 11.5 lakh rupees apart from the documents. I'd like to go across to Shravan Sen, also joining us live on the broadcast. Let me go across to him and get more details. This is the 1,000 crore Patra Chawl scam. And I'm going across to Shravan Sen, who's joining us with the details. Getting in some details now from the Enforcement Directorate, suggesting now that 11.5 lakh rupees. That's what Enforcement Directorate sources are saying, that 11.5 lakh rupees has been seized from the residence of Sanjay Raut. Now, that's a lot of money. Not sure whether it's directly linked to this particular case, but the Enforcement Directorate saying that's the total seizure made in the residence of Sanjay Raut. Not sure whether it's the Dadar residence or the Dadar property that was raided or his residence in Bandu. But getting in more details that 11.5 lakh rupees. Shravan, if you can hear me. Shravan, are you there? Shravan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the seizure, Shravan? 11.5 lakh rupees.
Well, the first confirmation now coming in, Niranjan, from top sources within the Enforcement Directorate, that the searches which started around 7 o'clock this morning, about 12 officers were inside Sanjay Raut's residence in Bhanduk. They have now recovered about 11.5 crore rupees. That's in cash that has been recovered by the Enforcement Directorate. One more breaking news now coming in. There have been some incriminating documents that have also been recovered by the Enforcement Directorate. Not very sure at this point in time whether at all this is connected to the Patrachal redevelopment scheme. That is something that we'll have to wait and watch because the investigation is underway. We are given to understand that a preliminary set of questions were posed at Sanjay Raut when he was at his residence, but he wasn't really cooperating, and that is one of the reasons why he's now been brought to the Enforcement Directorate's office at Balad Estate, where the questioning is basically underway. What really happens next is not very clear at this point in time, Niranjan, because whether at all there would be any sort of a punitive action that would be taken against Sanjay Raut, that's a decision perhaps the Enforcement Directorate would be taking only after the questioning gets over and a sense that they get whether at all they're making any headway or not. If that does not happen, then there is a high possibility, Niranjan, that he would be placed under arrest. So far, we are given to understand that no such decision has been taken. Perhaps it's going to take a few more hours before the Enforcement Director takes a final call on this matter.
Yeah, now a lot of people asking questions, Shravan, about the scam. And, we've been breaking down the details of this 1,000 crore plus scam. Why don't you tell our viewers about the scam itself? You've been tracking the story for several years now. What are the facts? How many people have been cheated?
Well, if you really look at the number of tenants who actually have been duped, this goes way more than about 600 tenants who were actually promised that their flats would be redeveloped. Keeping that in mind, HDIL, the company which had basically given about over 100 crore rupees to Praveen Raut, the man who was first arrested by the Enforcement Directorate. He's not a relative of Sanjay Raut, but he's connected to Sanjay Raut's family members. And this is how he is connected. We are given to understand that roughly about over 80 lakh rupees was actually given to Varsha Raut, that's Sanjay Raut's wife. This is when the redevelopment project was basically underway. We are given to understand that HDIL had basically given this money to Praveen Raut in the garb of saying that these were profit that was basically made. But the fact of the matter is that where would the profit really come in when the project was never completed in the first place? Secondly, the Enforcement Director basically believes that there have been some diversion of funds, which basically includes the money that was received by Varsha Raut, roughly about 80 lakhs or so, a little over than that. And using that proceeds of crime, Varsha Raut allegedly bought a flat in Dadar and a parcel of land in Alibag. All these properties have already been attached by the Enforcement Directorate. Surprisingly, the moment the Enforcement Directorate actually registered a case, we're given to understand that the money, a part of the money, Varsha Raut had handed back to Praveen Raut, but also once again raising questions as to why at all, no interest was actually paid on the same amount. Because remember, effectively the argument that was basically put forth was that this was a loan that was given by Praveen Raut to Varsha Raut. If at all this was a loan, then there would have been an interest. No such interest was actually paid. Now, with regards to where does Sanjay Raut's role really come in? Because remember, for this particular project, certain clearances had to be taken from MADA. Even before the project could actually take off, there were green signals that were basically given by MADA. And it appears that there was a role that was allegedly played by Sanjay Raut. And that's exactly where Sanjay Raut now comes in, and whether at all he has been a beneficiary of the proceeds of crime.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Shawan. In fact, Shawan has been tracking the story very closely, and the breaking news update now coming in that 11.5 lakh rupees. Shawan, what are you hearing about the possible action on Sanjay Raut? There are reports that he could be arrested. Now, of course, the ED does not detain people, but the fact that they've brought him here, what does that indicate, Shawan?
Well, there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that Sanjay Raut hasn't really been cooperating. That is primarily why he's now been brought to the Enforcement Directorate. While there are political leaders who have made multiple claims that Sanjay Raut has been detained, and for those political leaders who've made that kind of claim, they are unaware of the fact that there is no such procedure that is in place as far as the Enforcement Directorate is concerned. It isn't exactly how a police station basically functions. The reason why you have Sanjay Raut, who's now been brought to the Enforcement Directorate, primarily because of two things. One, there has been a seizure that has been made, documents that have been seized by the Enforcement Directorate. He needs to be confronted. Secondly, he hasn't really been cooperative. When searches are essentially carried out, as per the procedure, there is a basic statement that is recorded by the Enforcement Directorate. It turns out when that was actually happening, he wasn't really cooperating. That was one of the reasons why he's now been brought in. To answer your question, whether at all there is going to be any sort of a punitive action taken against Sanjay Raut, which would essentially mean an arrest, one cannot really take away the fact that the Enforcement Directorate has been looking into this case for quite some time, and they believe that they have enough evidence for placing Sanjay Raut under arrest. Whether that's going to happen immediately or not, that we'll have to wait and watch. Perhaps a little time more clarity coming in, but there is a high possibility, Niranjan, that he may be placed under arrest, but clarity would only come in little later.
So he's not cooperating. He's not cooperating is the big takeaway from what Shawan has said there. But we are outside the Enforcement Directorate office. It's to my left. Alisha is also live here. Let me try and go across to her. Shawan, thank you for joining us with those inputs. Shawan is on the phone. We'll try and get him live at some point. He's moving. He's on the move. And let's also tell you that as far as the different versions that are coming out, Alisha, they like to tell you that I think one of the things he's been saying is that irrespective of the kind of pressure from agencies, he's not going to join any party, etc. Does any party really want him? Does any party want him? Is there any political pressure on him? What is the political pressure, Alisha?
Well, Niranjan, whether it is from the Twitter where continuously Sanjay Raut has been mentioning that I am associated with Shiv Sena, the real Shiv Sena, and I take a promise of Bas Thackeray that I did not, did anything wrong when it is coming related to the case. So that is the statement that was made, came in from Sanjay Raut, whether it's from the social media or whether he was speaking to the media here or whether it is outside the ED office. But there is no political pressure. We can see that there are only Mahavikas Aghadi who has been coming outside and speaking to the media saying that this is nothing but a political vendetta. But if we look at the case and what is also mentioned by my colleague Shawan, they have evidence. Enforcement Directorate has the evidence, and that evidence might put Sanjay Raut under arrest. But we have to wait for an official confirmation, or while the Enforcement Directorate will make it officially arrest. But while asking about the case, because it is a case that was, opened by Economic Offence Wing of Mumbai Police. That was initially investigated by Mumbai Police, but later when Enforcement Directorate came to know that there is a money laundered, because it's not something about 1 or 2 crore, but it is something about 1,000 crore. There are money trial of 1,000 crore, whether politically motivated, because Sanjay Raut, who has been now the senior leader, as he himself called it that he's a very senior leader and very close to the Thackeray family. So, which is why there could be a possibility of Pravin Raut taking an advantage of, Sanjay Raut being into the politics and specifically when it comes to Shiv Sena in Maharashtra. So, it really puts a very huge impact whether to, take money from any other companies, and that is the benefit that Pravin Raut has taken, because 100 crores that was taken from HDIL, the promoter who's Sarang and Rakesh Wadhwan are the promoters, and under the name of Guru Ashish Construction Private Limited, where Pravin Raut has asked for 100 crore, and that is where he was arrested because the trial of money, the evidence, the document that has come before enforcement directed, after which he was arrested, and that is where the more revelations have come forward before the agency. We know that Sanjay Raut, who was called in, there was Sapna Patkar as well, as I was mentioning earlier, that Sapna Patkar, who gave a statement before ED, she was asked to come before the enforcement directorate on 19th of July. So she was questioned, she was grilled for several hours. And she has also provided many documents where she mentioned that there are multiple property in the name of Sanjay Raut and his wife Varsha Raut, but that name was registered under her. It was her name that was registered, but mainly that property belongs to Sanjay Raut and Varsha Raut, and that has really transpired before enforcement directed, and which is why now they have been looking into the matter, because in the month of April we know that there were already attachment of the property assets, including the flat of Dadar that was bought by Varsha Raut, the 83 lakh that was taken up from Pravin Raut, and that money was put to buy the flat in Dadar. Not only that, but there are also many more properties in Alibag as well. So that has also come across and under the radar of enforcement directorate, which has already been attached. Many of the properties that has been attached, the land or whether it is a flat that has been attached. But now Sanjay Raut has to face the question because he's not cooperating. Even we know that even last summons that was given to him, he was here in the AD office. He was questioned for around 10 hours, but that is something he was not ready to answer. Some of the question that was asked by enforcement director, he was not ready to answer, after which he's been summoned again. But there were he skipped two summons stating that he is a senior leader of Shiv Sena, he's a member of parliament, and he has to attend the campaign for the vice president elections, and also there is a parliament session, which is why he could not be able to join the probe. But being in Mumbai, he could not be able to join the probe in ED, and which is why ED got to know that he is in Mumbai, and taking an advantage of the information, that type of information with the agency, they reached to his resident early morning at 7. There were 9 hours of searches, and after which not only the documents but 11.50 lakh rupees has also been recovered from his resident.